What is that doing there? We just move the other way. Alright. Well, what's up, folks? I'm John Caspian for Giga-Bites Cafe, and today we're going to ask... I was trying to say answer and ask at the same time. Ask. We're going to ask and answer one simple question as I drop a couple of minis on the floor. Should you buy Star Wars Legion? So, this gets asked a lot when new games come out, and something that we can answer with several different answers and see if there are good enough reasons for you to want to hop on the train. If you're already interested and invested in Star Wars Legion, put in the comments what you like about it and what you love about it. Just type them in, or if you're a thumb warrior, you can do that as well. And I'll give you my personal ones after I give you a short list of reasons why you should, if you want to, play Star Wars Legion. So the short answer is probably yes, you should buy Star Wars Legion. The long answer is, well, we're going to go into several reasons why you should. Let's start with number one, though. Should I buy Star Wars Legion? The first thing you want to ask is, will people play it? Because ultimately you want a game that other people will all want to play with you, because that's the point of a miniature war game. You can't play with yourself all the time. That wouldn't be very fun. So, when we're talking about things like Star Wars, got my little minis here. Bam! And I got a blue Stormtrooper. Picked blue. I don't like painting white, so had to pick another color. And as I think about it, these black Stormtroopers are actually really cool looking, kind of Death Troopers. So that's neat. Other people are definitely going to be playing Star Wars Legion, especially at Giga-Bites. We're going to have at least one dedicated night and tournaments quite often. Our Giga champion, James, he's very much like ready to help support the game in every way he can. He's been helping people get into it, teaching people, organizing stuff for the store. So yes, if you're worried about not having people to play with, you don't have to worry about that, because we're going to have a lot of people. We have a few out of our core sets that we ordered, and we ordered a lot. So that means that there are people who are building and assembling and putting stuff together, which actually leads me into number two. Should I buy Star Wars Legion if I haven't played a miniature war game before? And this one is very easy to answer, actually. Go for it. Here's why. This little box I put conveniently on the ground next to me. This one is the Stormtrooper expansion set. I haven't been to Georgia yet. I go to the end of the month when I can pick up my core sets. But what is in the expansion is all of these little minis, as you can see here. There's 7 of these in a Stormtrooper expansion set. And then they each come in their own individual bag. And I left the bags in here to show you. The arm and the body is already put together, and the arms kind of attach. And so you don't have to do any extra assembling except for gluing the body onto a base, which comes in the bag, and then gluing the arms to the body, which you can do at a later point. I haven't even done that yet, and I've fully painted these guys. So if you're new to miniature wargaming and you literally haven't done any painting before, it's a perfect opportunity for you to at least take a little bit of glue, super glue in this case because it's a plastic resin combo, and then paint it to the, or glue it to the base, and then stick it on the table and start playing. So you can get probably your entire core set except the vehicles painting. I guess for this 7 Stormtroopers, it took me like 5 minutes or less to glue them to their bases. And then it comes with a handy-dandy reference sheet, which shows you the components that come in the box, as well as the exact combos for the arms, just in case the individual bags weren't enough for you. And then, because I did this, I took all the arms and I put them in a pile to prime them. And then when I picked them back up, I was like, which ones go to where? Because they could fit together. I mean, obviously not the unit leader here with one arm, but a lot of them are kind of holding the two arms per blaster rifle, E11 blaster rifle. And then it also comes with your unit card, as well as upgrades that you can purchase, and then tokens that you have. So if you're looking to create an army according to the general tournament recommendation, which is going to be 800 points, you get yourself a core set, and then you can share the core set with a friend, or keep it for yourself in order to play the game with people who might come over to your house, or if people say, hey, I'm new, let's go play Giga-Bites, you bring them over to the store, they can get a feel for it that way. And then eventually you get the unit expansion pack, so it's super easy in order to like set up your army list for 800 points, because the unit cards all have the point cost, and then you just grab a calculator and add up all the points that you want to for all the upgrades. So there's a certain restriction, like you can only take up to 6 Stormtrooper squads, but that's all laid out in the rules reference, which is free online. And the cool thing about the rules reference is actually it's online, which means they can change it whenever they need to. So in case there's something big that happens when thousands upon thousands of players have played for, you know, let's say 2 weeks or a month from now, and they say, oh, okay, let's go ahead and change XYZ, they can change it, update it, and then you don't have this printed rules references that might be outdated in a month. So that's pretty cool. And then reason number 3, price. So the core set is a good deal. It's phenomenal. You get, gosh, 300, 400 points per side, something like that. So it's a little bit uneven total points-wise because you get Darth Vader, who's 200 points, and Luke Skywalker isn't quite that much. But even then, it's not too hard to bulk up your troops up to the full 800. I think 2 or 3 core sets for the Rebels gets you up there. And then you could also just buy the expansions. The Airspeeder is really cool. So when you're assembling these models, you're not going to worry as much about mold lines as other things. So when I assembled these guys, I didn't really worry too much except for the helmets. The helmets were the only thing I had to really worry about in terms of mold lines, and a little bit on the legs. So other than the legs, which I can always do as battle damage, I didn't really have to worry about assembling that much, which made it super, super easy, and that's a cool thing that you want. So overall, when you're thinking about, do I really want to get into this game system, one, you definitely want to if you're a Star Wars fan, because I played it last night and it was super fun. It was on Hoth, and it felt like it. I was definitely the Imperial player, had 2 AT-STs just shooting the crap out of my Rebel troopers. And then if you're a super fan of Star Wars, go ahead and get it. And then if you haven't played Miniature Wargames before, it's a great introduction because Fantasy Flight Games stays on top of things. So they're going to be supporting the game for years to come. They wouldn't release it and then kind of just let it die right away, right? So they're going to be constantly releasing new things every month or two. The things that are up next to be released is General Veers and Leia, as well as Snow Troopers, which are normally called like... there's another name for them that they're typically called in other games, but I think they're called Snow Troopers in this. And then the Rebel Space Troopers that were in the Tantive 4. I forget if it's Space Troopers. Someone tell me the name. James, tell me the name of that. Not Space Troopers. I don't know why I'm thinking Space Troopers. But they're going to be supporting that constantly, just like how GW has been doing their releases, where they've been releasing things, you know, over a nice schedule amount of time. So you're going to start off with maybe what it feels like very few models, right? Or let's say units, like I get a Stormtrooper squad, I can get an AT-ST, and then I can get speeder bikes are kind of the expansions right now. And the AT-ST and the Airspeeder don't come in the core set, so you definitely want to buy those separately. And the AT-ST, by the way, is pretty big. It's a nice model. So you know, it starts off kind of small so that you can get everything, start playing, get a feel for the game. And the rules, by the way, I'll get to that in a second, but the rules are awesome. So once we start off with this, and then after, say, months, a couple of months down the road, you say, okay, I've played with my core set, I have a certain play style that I have in mind. Fantasy Flight will let you supplement that playstyle with the new things that are coming in. So they've already announced for later on in the year Han Solo, Rebel Commandos, that kind of stuff. And that will be, I guess there's one of them that you can take, the Commandos you can take in a squad of 5, but also in a squad of 2, which means there's more of an elite squad, like a sniper squad. So that gives you even more options that you can choose when you're making your different lists, army lists. But yeah, so the rules-wise, and this is, I guess, reason number 4 why you should buy it, is that the rules are they're solid, and then the rules reference gives very detailed descriptions of each rule for when you're wanting to play like tournaments or you're really wanting to get into the game. So it starts off simple and straightforward, and it makes sense. How you take your turns, you know, the different actions that you can take are very straightforward in their concepts. And then you can then move on to the chunky part, which is getting into the nitty-gritty of how the rules interactions work. And that is phenomenal. And they've laid it out in the rules reference already, which means as you look at it, you can look at it at fantasyflightgames.com and check that out and read through certain the rules. Let's say one that I was talking about last night in my game was suppression. I didn't quite understand how suppression, you take a hit and you put a suppression token on. And then there was a long list of how suppression works in the rules reference, and I totally got it after that. So once you're looking to Fleet Troopers, thank you, James, Fleet Troopers. So once you get into how that works and you kind of really understand it in the interactions, then you're set to go, and there's less confusion. So I think that's something they might have learned from Games Workshop, where GW wanted to simplify Warhammer 40K. They ended up simplifying it, which is good, and then not necessarily, they may have oversimplified it and not given enough information in terms of like an FAQ, kind of how the rules reference is for this. And once you see this, you're going to love it, because it kind of removes a lot of those questions. You go, okay, so if I do this, then blah, 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 blah. It already answers those things. So I literally just had to peek at the rules reference, take a look through, see if it answered my question. It did, and then I was good. So power to the playtesters for that. So ultimately, if I were talking with a friend of mine, and they said, I've never played wargaming before, I guess I've heard of Warhammer 40K, but I love Star Wars, I would say this is the perfect opportunity to start playing a war game, because it has Fantasy Flight's spin, which when you think of how Fantasy Flight does theirs compared to maybe other things, there's a lot of cards in front of you. So you are allowed to do two different things. You can play the game very narrative, which is where you don't necessarily focus as much on how you build your list and like min-maxing or making sure you optimize everything for the matchups that you can imagine. It's not as much meta-oriented, which is how I play. I'm kind of like, I want to get some cool stuff on the table and shoot things. And then it allows you to play very meta-oriented. So meta-oriented is garnering toward the more competitive side and towards seeing how other people are playing. So if a lot of competitive lists are 3 ATSTs and Darth Vader, so that might be considered a meta list that most people might not take, but in the competitive scene, it's very good. Then those players can focus on that and sort of create and upgrade their ATSTs how they want to. Whereas someone like me, I don't necessarily optimize it. I think, oh, it'd be cool if I had all mortars and they just shot across the board and stayed in the back. Probably not ideal, but it'd be fun for me. So it'll be great for a new player to either choose to kind of go with that narrative side and kind of play for fun for a little while, and then as you play more, you start to get more into the competitive side and saying, ooh, it'd be really fun if I optimize my list for this that I'm going for, that I'm going for. So there's a nice path here that you can ask current players. Most current players that come in from X-Wing or Armada, the other FFG games, will probably err more on the competitive side, which is cool. I like that because I like to see how people are really, not observing, but nitpicking, I guess, how certain things work, like ATRTs and their effectiveness in 2 or 3 at a time versus if you take 1 ATST versus 2 ATSTs, or how ATSTs are good for suppression and stuff like that. It's great for me to read all those kind of things, and it might be good for you too. So you buy the game, and like I'm gonna buy, I don't know, 6 Stormtrooper squads and take them, and that's probably gonna be around 500 points in my list. Half my army will just be Stormtroopers swarming the field. Will it be ideal? Probably not. But for me, that's really fun because I love the idea of literally a legion of Stormtroopers, swarming forward and shooting things as best they can. Yeah, cool. So, to recap, rules are super solid. They're simple to understand and grasp, and then they are very chunky in terms of their overall depth that they have. So that's a good thing. The models are good. They're not too detailed, which means for new painters, you don't kind of get into the mistake of, I have to perfectly paint it my first time. Just slap some paint on it and call it a day. It's Star Wars. People understand this is a Stormtrooper. You're good. The game is going to be well supported by both Fantasy Flight Games and the local stores, such as Giga-Bites Cafe. So we're going to support it quite a bit. The model line is going to be constantly added onto for the next several years. So if you don't have something that you want right now, probably later on it's going to be there. And you can always request that to them. The game looks really cool. So I recommend, if you are a fan of Star Wars and you think, I've never played it, or I play other mini war games, but this might be a good opportunity for me to jump into the FFG realm, then go for it. Jump in. Cool. I hope that helped you and your thoughts as to whether or not you should buy Legion. I say yes. I certainly have bought into it, not just because it's Star Wars, but because it's Star Wars, it's Fantasy Flight, and they did a good job of letting us know what the game is going to be like. They didn't hide anything. It wasn't like shadowy, like, oh, it's going to be a fun game, so buy it and find out later. We knew the rules before the game even came out. We saw playing of it months before it came out, and me seeing the games and then also playing it, I was sold. So I hope that helps you, and we will see y'all later today at 4 for our board game talk, and if not, in case Joseph is doing something, then we will definitely catch you on another day this week. I look forward to seeing y'all soon, and get your Star Wars Legion at Giga-Bites Cafe. Thanks, y'all. Where's my mouse? I gotta do the outro here. Watch this. 3, 2, bam!